Okay, guys, good morning. How you doing? So today we are going to go over the concept of you cannot heal abandonment by returning to the person who abandoned you. Okay, so if you followed things for a while of what I've been saying and the Gemini reading and everything else about these cycles of life, right? So when we start to look at a cycle, we obviously start to look at a cycle that is obviously karmic energy, and that would obviously like relate to the Wheel of Fortune being like a 1 or a 10. Okay, the past returns to the past, and the past reflects the future, and we reflect abandonment. So if a person is only teaching you how to, well, if you're with someone that teaches you how to be abandoned, that's all they can teach you, right? So the amount of times that you go backwards and forwards and backwards and forwards, you cannot learn anything other than abandonment because that's all that they know. Okay, so you'll obviously go through cycles and cycles and cycles and being kicked out and going backwards and forwards and backwards and forwards, doing the same thing over and over again, which is the definition of madness. Understanding that I need clarity, I need closure, and all it relates to is childhood wounding of feeling left out and abandoned. Okay, and the world itself promotes a lot of this within itself. Okay, so what I did want to quickly start with, people that have followed me, my twin flame journey has ultimately gone wrong straight away. So you know me, I don't care. I'm always transparent with people because we're grown-ups on this channel and we understand the deeper meaning that is spiritual. So I need to quickly undo what I told people because I need to make myself open and fresh and ready to start anew. So I told everybody that I would meet, and you guys can meet, and when you're about to meet someone, will always be on your healing year, your personal year number 2. That is pretty much when you will meet someone. Now, people can meet people during these 2 years, during separation and divorce and judgment and justice, because all you need to do is look for the tarot cards that represent a number 2, and that is reconciliation of judgment. The past comes back for a judgment call to call you up to ask you to make a decision of yes or no. Do you want to come back to me and restart things? And then when you look at judgment, it's also like counseling, spiritual counseling, physical counseling, blah, 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 all the way up until you get to year 5. Year 5 is obviously the Hierophant, right? So the Hierophant as a major arcana card is also the minor is the 5 of Swords, the 5 of Wands, abandonment issues, mind games, manipulation, manipulating the situation because of abandonment, because you're with someone that can only teach you how to be abandoned because that's all they know. Now, because 5 represents the big energy, which is trust, if you've gone through this cycle after cycle, like you're going to want to your whole cycle of 1 to whatever it is within your personal year chart, when you get into 2s and 3s and like third parties and fourth parties, this will really break down into like, okay, so what's my numerology of my healing year, but what is theirs? Okay, so it might be like, okay, I'm focusing on mine, but what is that person's? Now, if there are like 4 people, right? Say if there's a man and a wife and a man and a wife, okay, or a man and a wife and a single person, and the female leaves and goes to the single male, and this male, he goes off to his ex and blah, 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 and tries to sort out why he was abandoned and abandons you, and then you go off to this person here that's single, okay, and then your ex comes back and asks you to go back, and you do, and you make that judgment call here, and you say, yes, I will, and you go back to your ex, but you abandon the future. That karmic energy needs to be also reconciled and undone. Okay, so whatever was built up in these energies here also will reflect back to what happens in this group energy, because he abandoned this person, goes back to his past that abandons him. So all he's going to teach this person when they go back is how to abandon one another. That's why you always end up getting another judgment call to say, hi, I'm back. Okay, you were right. Things didn't quite work out right. He did it again. I'm blaming him for what he did because he did it to me. But then again, all they're teaching you is how to be abandoned, how to abandon, right? So we go back to the concept. You cannot heal abandonment by returning to the person who abandoned you, because this is not just a message for you, it's also a message for them. Okay? So we're looking at trines of people that all relate to the same quote. You cannot heal abandonment by returning to the person who abandoned you. Alchemy. Okay? So we obviously go through abandonment issues, and then we obviously go to the numerology energy of 9. Okay. But let's kind of go back to the beginning. So for a start, like I said, I really wanted to alliterate people, because on the Virgo reading and whatnot, I'm going to bypass the haters, because I had a few haters, but we're grown-ups, aren't we? So in my year 2, I said I was going to meet someone, and I did. Okay. I turn into a year 3, personal year 3, in March 8th. So it is now obviously October coming up to November. So I've got the rest of November, December, January, February, and then March. I've got another 5 months still left within my personal year 2. My personal year 2, where I met someone that took over completely. Plans were made, moving to Britain, giving up the past, blah, 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 so on and so forth. Just got out of a divorce. Okay, it happened before because we reconnected before and it happened. Okay, and the person went back to their ex and then met me again, and then contacted me again, and so on and so forth, right? The loop happens. So this time it was a promise of like, oh, there's no way I'm going to go back and all that sort of stuff. Now, I'm not projecting hatred on her, and I do not want any of you to project a blame hatred towards the person that I'm talking about, okay? Because we're grown-ups. We're looking at spiritual energy here of learning, right? So there is no blame. That was my lesson, okay, is to release and let go. Do not blame, okay? Treat them for, what is the word? Forgive them, for they know not what they do, okay? So we cannot blame. So basically, within my pattern, I met someone, the 2 of Cups took hold really, really fast, really, really quickly. Okay, you start going into that 7 of Cups, because that is my life path number, 7. Okay, but you start really going into that, wow, this is like really taking a hold, and I'm thinking about you all the time and all of this sort of stuff, and we're mirroring each other, we're picking up synchronicities, and you're really going into that 2 of Cups new energy, right? But sometimes you can meet people that are going through judgment and justice. So because that number 2 represents Libra, that does in the tarot and in life, it represents karmic paperwork, divorcing, need to do it legally, illegally, legally, right? It needs to go through the court system, needs to be looked at, paperwork of divorcing, separation. 2 and 5, obviously, Hierophant and all this sort of stuff, right? So 2 is also separation or marriage. It's both, right? You go to a church and whatnot, and you get legally wed, and you get married, okay? When you get divorced, you pretty much got to do the same thing. You have to go back to the hands of Libra, right? So whilst this is happening, obviously, because Gemini, we was a Gemini and then involved in the Scorpio, in the Scorpio kind of scenarios of the readings, right? For the person I was dealing with. But yeah, so pretty much he reaches out again after the abandonment and I don't love you and I don't want to be with you and I want a divorce and blah, blah, blah. And I'm going to go back off to my ex to try and find out why I was abandoned and blah, blah, blah. But I'm going to lie to you or I'm not going to lie to you and you're not going to know. So because that's happened so many times, the trust issues are gone, right? The trust issues have broken in her circumstances. But because her traditional energy is, I want to fix this, right? That's what you do when you've been abandoned, because you search for an answer of your childhood wounding. Okay, so you need closure. And your energy is of like, I need to figure this out. I need to work on this. And I've said this for so many times. People will always try a different way to get the same thing. It's the definition. Einstein invented and told everybody it. Okay. The definition of madness is doing the same thing over and over again and getting the same results. But if you form a circle and you try different things during that circle and it fails, that's majority of what people would do in an abandonment circle of 5. Okay. So they would think, oh, okay, well, we'll try counseling. Okay. Well, we'll try giving up this. I'll try to be more patient. I'll try to, do this for you. And I'll give up this and I'll give that up about my life and I'll sacrifice all of these things to make it work for you. Okay. But it doesn't, and it never does, because you're sacrificing the true self. You never have to sacrifice the true self for someone that isn't true. Okay, so everybody, when you're with someone that's karmic, they will always get you to try something or give up something in your life about you or physically around you. Give up your parents, give up this, blah, blah, blah. Let's look towards God. Okay. It's like hope Jesus gives us a pass, right? And we'll look spiritually, or we'll look, within the realms of religion, or, you can give up your house or your home, or you give up this and I'll give up that. And really what you're doing is just, getting rid of all of these things and abandoning everything, not realizing that external energy is like, it doesn't matter what I get rid of. Okay. It's everything is that you're trying to give up. Tell me to give up all of the things that make me, me. It's, because they're not focusing on you. Right? So anyway, let's not go too deep right at the moment. Right? So yeah, I just wanted to make that obliterately clear. I got told last night that she's going to go back to her husband and work on it for I don't know how many times, but I understand it. It's okay. But she's going to go back to her husband and try and fix that, whatever kind of chaotic it is. But within her numerology being 2, when she goes back, unfortunately, and this is not wanted by me at all, but her numerology is not going to be great. Like that cycle of now she's chosen to go back, that is not going to be a good karmic pattern. There'll be a lot of triggers because they're triggering each other, you see. Because of this quote, right, you cannot heal abandonment by returning to the person that abandoned you. All they're going to learn is about abandonment. Like they can't learn anything other than that. So they're going to be stuck in regret. Okay, she'll be lonely and left out and pushed out and feeling like regret and remorse and trying to rebuild the energy and keep trying to get reflected back to what am I not doing good enough to serve you, master? Okay. And, just be reflected back because that's all he can teach her. Right. So unfortunately within those karmic years, it's going to get worse until roughly reaching 5, but they can change by the time it comes to a 3, right? Because me and her were both 2s, but her being Gemini, it's not until June, July, and mine be March. So I go to a 3 before she goes to a 3, right? So during those 3 years, it can either be a reflection of coming back and trying to fix or reflect on that. I don't want to go into that at the moment because I don't want to talk about my own pattern, right? But so when we go back to what I was telling people, this energy is really important. This circle, right? So within the brain, there are 3 options that the brain can roughly choose from if we look at it, right? If we go left, we pretty much end up full circle, okay? Comes right back to the beginning again, here. So really what you're doing is, right, you're just looking at the world card, okay? The world card. But it goes around here, and it comes back around, and it goes back around, and it goes back around. But if I was to choose to go this way, okay, I would just end up back here again, full circle. Why if they came back, the pattern of because you can only teach each other abandonment. So the brain itself will try different things this way, and it also try different things this way. So this is also like a left energy because when abandoned, okay, the brain tries to figure out why and tries to fix it. So it goes back to a lonely energy and a low vibration of where it's so relevant. Because I've been so used to doing that, I was taught by my parents to be abandoned and so on and so forth and unwanted and unloved and conditioned to believe that way, right? So it's quite simple, an easy way out of not having to work on anything. Because I haven't learned anything, I need to go back in order to learn more. So I need to be abandoned much more. Many more times do I need to be abandoned and abandoned and abandoned again and again and again. I mean, because the trust is gone within a bad circle, that's inevitable that will never work no matter what you try, because that's already gone. You've gone past your 5 year and you've continued to go to your 2, and now you're continuing on with the numerology, right? So the trust is gone. Right, this is why this is really important to work on things when you are actually together, not to leave each other, manipulate each other, kick each other out, destroy each other and abandon and, like, you know, maybe cheat on each other and go with other people and all that sort of stuff. It's like destined to fail because the trust is already broken. You can't fix that, right? It cannot be fixed. So it can only be fixed within you of someone else that teaches you something different, but we will go on with that, right? So because the brain is so relevant to go back to what it's used to, it will always go back because I need to go back to fix what can't be fixed, right? To prove that, you know, okay, you didn't cheat on me. It's all right. Right. I've figured that out. Great. That, you know, I thought there must be a reason why you abandoned me, that it must be some other woman or man, forgetting the fact of like, well, love doesn't actually do that. Love does not question. Love does not abandon. Love does not hate. Okay. So, you know, oh, it's obvious, you know, so, you know, and now I know I'm got closure. I can start moving on with you and we can work on this now. Right. So we'll try counseling and all of these things and blah, blah, blah. Right. But, oh my God, what's happened again? Right. Because you're stuck in that loop karmically with someone. So the brain goes left and realizes, shit, every time I keep going left and going backwards, I'm learning nothing but a repetitive pattern of abandonment, right? But it's the same when it also goes right. It goes in a different direction in order to really just end up again full circle. But like I was saying in other readings to people, the way you get out of this is by going straight through it, and you go through fear. Okay. So that cuts the mirror in half, and that cuts the brain in half of the reflection of the mirror, right? The mirror and the energy breaks when you go straight through to the other side, right? So this is a new person, right? Someone that's new, right? Say this is me, and say this is you, right? But me and you, us and them, right? So the pattern starts. So-and-so leaves this person. They come back to say me, right? They go back to the other person because we're all mirrors. All of us are mirrors, right? So I kind of said it at the beginning. He goes back to her to find out, or parents to find out about abandonment and so on and so forth. Abandons you. You go off to a new person. You meet someone new. When the past comes back to you of a judgment call, you can either pass the test or you fail it. If you go back to the past, you fail because you do this again and again and again. Z person here that was single that met you during this time has to let go and release. Okay. Because it has to not be in your mind. You have to, because like I'm saying, I'm showing you the pattern. But if you can't do this physically, mentally, and emotionally quite easy, you know where you are on your path. Okay. Because each time these happen, they teach you to become emotionally stable, and you understand what all of this means, right? But you can know what it means, but truly being able to feel that and actually do that are two different things altogether. So it doesn't matter what I tell you. It doesn't mean that you're going to be able to do it. It just means that this is the way that it is. Okay. So the more you go this way, you come full circle. The more you go that way, blah, blah, blah. Now you can break the chain and you can go to a new person. But if you mess that up and you go back, you have to start this again. But this energy has to be resolved to the other person that you did it to, their life, their cycle of life, right? So fear is a phobia. It's anxiety. It's fight or flight. Then you got like a 7, right? 7 of Swords, the Chariot and the 7 of Swords. So you get fight or flight. Now, when people experience fear, they panic, obviously, right? When they panic, they go back to knowing what's new, right? They look for an escape, a way out. Because that is a phobia is obviously fear. So fight or flight is when a memory, because like I've said to everybody, right? What is a feeling? It's nothing but a memory. If I was to rip out my guts and say, there you go, everybody, there are my feelings. And you go, where? There's nothing but blood and guts. Oh, okay. So there obviously isn't an organ in the human body that represents a feeling. There isn't a separate organ like a lung and a liver and a heart, right? You know, your heart hasn't got feelings, right? So, but if I was to rip out my brain and say, right, there's my brain. Oh yeah, that's your brain. There is a brain. You're dead, but there is a brain there. Oh, okay. So that's your brain. Great. But like I said, if I was to rip out my feelings and show you, there will be nothing but blood and guts, right? And tissue, right? So feelings are not real, but your brain is, right? So what is creating a feeling is a memory. It's a thought and a memory. So when we look at anxiety and fear, the amygdala is a memory of a block of a memory that you shared with someone. Okay, the past and the future and a memory and a good time and a bad time and a good time and a bad time and a bad time and a good time, baby. Right? So all of these building blocks, they try to get into the brain to the amygdala. But if it doesn't make sense, it tries to kick it out again. Right? Because it doesn't go into the brain properly because it's a memory that isn't supposed to be there. Right? So like anxiety is, okay, the fucking something's going to attack me. Something's there that isn't. Your brain won't accept that, so it tries to push it back out. Right? So it's like, oh my God, there's a fucking lion in front of me and I need to quickly get away from it. But it isn't there really because I'm having a panic attack, right? So the mind will be going like, oh shit, backwards and forwards and in and out, trying to put all of this nonsense into my brain and what that actually isn't real and it's trying to get in, but my brain keeps kicking it out and it's making me physically go backwards and forwards and run and try to escape my memory and my mind of what actually isn't there. If you've ever had anxiety, you know, what you feel and what you think isn't actually real. You know, you're not going to die. You're not hyperventilating. It's just adrenaline, right? So basically the adrenaline receptors try to go in and out of the brain and blah, blah, blah. And they cause all of these reflections, right? These mirrors of reflections of fear and anxiety, right? Because all of what's happened, I've been thinking about it, all this bad stuff over and over and over and over again, right? And now it's causing anxiety because these are all mirrors of bad energy, right? They're not placed. So when one goes back into an energy of feeling abandoned, they start to fear the reflection of the memory. They start to think about all of the times that they've left me before. Don't forget the other person and the two people in this group are doing exactly the same thing to one another. Okay, when I left, or when my husband left me, or when my wife left me, or when my parents left me, or they go through like loads of different triggers and mirrors because they're each other's mirror, they're each other's self, right? You know, so that just keeps happening, and that's why the fight or flight happens because of the fear of being left, the fear of being abandoned, the memories, because too many memories have been created. People try to create the mirror and fix them and put them all together of memories, right? So photographs and all of this sort of stuff. This is why it's good that if you've been abandoned, you have to forget that person. You have to, get rid of all of the pictures and the memories and blah, blah, blah. So it leaves space in order for you to be able to grow because you don't want reminding of this. This is why I say to people, you need to block bad energies out, block the past, stop them from coming back. But again, when they do, you're supposed to be at a very good stage in your life where you're like, no, that's good, but I don't feel the same way about you anymore. I'm sorry. I naturally don't have those feelings like I used to. Okay, that's because you have naturally learned, Natalie, but you have naturally learned, right? You can't force these things because that's just denial, right? Denial spells out, didn't even realize I was lying, AA or NA, if you've ever been Alcoholics Anonymous or drug, rehabilitation centers, you'll realize that, I used to be a counselor, so we used to teach these sort of things there as like, it's just denial. Okay. So the brain forms anxiety and blah, 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 and it forms these mirrors. And then this one kind of goes into this one and they just do that and they reflect the pain and the hurt and the abandonment. And then it just goes karmic and they try so many different things to try and stop this cycle happening, but it just continues to. And the more that it does, the more they try to pick up the pieces and figure out how we're going to put all this together again and how we're going to build it, how we're going to make it. And these are just building blocks of the tower, right? But how are we going to do all of that and how are we going to accomplish this and what can we try and how about if we eliminate this and we eliminate that and change you a little bit? Okay, but that's a tangible object. That's not a physical feeling. You can't remove a feeling because it's not there. You can't remove a memory because it is there. Okay, so because the memories and the create the feelings are create an emotion of a memory that will never be erased. You can't break. You can't fix what's fucked. Basically, right? If your memories are bad of abandonment, that's him and you. Or, I'm talking to everybody, right? Your party, their party, third party, 2-pack, 3-pack, 4-pack, none. It doesn't matter, right? Even talking to myself, right? So, these memories, they cannot be fixed, but you'll always think, well, we'll eliminate a few of these sort of things. And, I don't want you talking to him anymore, and I don't want you talking to her anymore, and I want you to delete their information, and I don't, are they on Facebook, and are they on social media, and where's their phone number? If I just get you to not contact them, I'm sure that will work. Has anybody ever done that? Or is anybody actually still doing that? Right? Blaming the past. So, if I just get rid of the competition and I get rid of the other person, they're not going to think about them anymore. Of course they are. What are you going to do? Remove their brain? Good luck with that one, right? So you can't remove a person's brain. So it doesn't matter whether you remove their social media or whether you remove them off the planet of the Earth. They're still going to think about that person, right? They're still going to think about you regardless because it's happened. It's a memory that's created a pattern, right? So, in these patterns, there is nobody to blame for that energy because you still have to go back to this energy of looking here, right? You cannot heal abandonment by returning to the person who abandoned you, right? So then when you look at it and you think, okay, so then if that person left me and went back to the other person, but they do eventually come back to me for a judgment call, does that mean that they're physically healed and that it's now my time to be with this person because they've learned from that other person? But then have I forgot all of this thinking, well, that doesn't include me? Well, of course, you get a judgment call. You get a call from the past, and it'll always happen more than likely. Okay. But you get a judgment call from the past saying to you, you were right. I left them again. They were cheating, or they abandoned me, or they told me that they didn't love me, and you were right. And then you're quickly, easily to not judge and be like, okay, welcome back. I can't wait for you to come back in my life. I love you. I want to be with you. I've missed you so much, honey. Well, that's what they said to each other when they got back too. The energy that destroys itself is narcissism. And it's also gaslighting, right? Abandonment goes from 5 to 9. So you always get that very bad quarter between 5 and 9. But, it's gaslighting, lying, and manipulation and gaslighting and mind games, all that sort of stuff, right? Because of the memories of 5. So when someone goes back to a person, that giddy feeling that you had when you met this person is exactly what they get when they get back to one another. They have sex and it's great and we're ripping each other's clothes off and everything's fucking brilliant and I love you and I've missed you and all of this sort of stuff, right? But that soon changes. That's feeding time, right? That's when the leech starts to feed off your energy. That's why you feel so great, for a very short period. Then you start to feel very drained because you realize that the making up period is gone, right? That ecstatic, oh fuck, let's just fuck like rabbits and let's get this over and done with and I'll feel great now I'm back with you and I'm going to tell you everything. I love you and I missed you and everything, right? And you get back, but how long does that last? Not long, because that is when you've connected to an energy that's now started to eat itself and destroy, right? Search and destroy. Narcissism is an energy that feeds from that energy. That's why when they abandon you, you think everything's going really well. Fucking hell, man. I always thought that we were extremely happy, right? You've just done this and we went away and we had a really good holiday and, you said you loved me and you wanted to be with me forever. But then the next day you told me to get out and abandon me. Why is that? You're connected to a narcissist. That's when they abandon you, when everything's going really good. Right? So when the connection is at its highest peak is when they abandon you. And that is when the past energy of someone else has also cut their energy off from you as well. And what you end up is ultimately abandoned, right? Because if you end up then going back to the person that you possibly destroyed a chance of breaking out of this at the beginning, right? These times, as many times as you can do it to a new person, you will break their trust as well. And they won't trust you, right? So, like I said, still look at that, your husband or wife or the trine. When they go back so many times, they don't even trust each other, right? So then when he breaks up or she breaks up with you and you come this way, eventually this person might not trust you either. And you're all abandoned, all of you. None of you end up with anybody. You all end up single. And then you end up regretting. You end up living in the 5 energy, regretting and thinking, if I'd have fucking not gone back, if I'd have just listened, if I'd have realized, that I had it really good with you, that I could have had a different life, that I could have changed things and things could have changed for me. If back then I would have done that, but I didn't, I made a mistake and I went back and tried to fix and heal all of this. Okay. So instead of giving that up and being strong enough to resist the hands of temptation and desire of the devil, because Saturn is karmic energy of Saturn is the devil, right? So lust and everything, right? Fools and tricks me into believing because it's an addiction, right? It's a habit, something that plays. It's a habit, an addiction, right? So that's why you go through 9, codependent, independent. Okay, so, you go back, blah, blah, blah. But if you keep doing this, you end up coming back and you get a judgment call and you're like, well, you're pretty much going to do it again, aren't you? You did it before. You're like, yeah, it was only once. Okay, well, I'll forgive you this time, but blah, 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 right? So the second time, you're kind of like, right, you're now done this for a second time, right? After that, starts to form a pattern. If you go past 2, you get to 3, and it happens again, that's a pattern of behavior. That's something that you've stuck in. This person now destroys this energy completely until it completely falls apart, and some people end up with no one at all, right? But if the new person is strong enough and has learned a lot to be the one that adds stable emotions, right, and can detach their emotions, right, well, their thoughts, basically. But if they know how to separate their thoughts from their feelings, and they can focus and not think, then their feelings will not be affected. So they don't think, they don't blame. Right? They get distracted quite easily. That's why it's very handy to have ADHD. It's actually a blessing in disguise to have ADHD because it's easy to distract yourself from that, right? When you do, you stabilize your mind because your feelings are not affected. So your mind beats mind over matter. So it breaks the cycle of the energy that the person's still holding on to. That breaks that, so they feel abandoned. Right? There's no more past of the old or the new to cling on to. That's why, like, when you've got a bad cycle going on, right, and it's going on and on and on, and you leave and you're with the new person and the past comes back, because they energetically feel that you're moving on with your life, that's just divine timing, really. It's not the fact that, oh my God, in my chakras, I can feel they're moving on. No, in that, it's just the numerology playing out. It's divine timing. It's showing you, are you strong enough to not resist the temptation of when they get abandoned and they realize their mistake, that they made a mistake, because exactly the same time they made a mistake, between the time that you were split up, is the time that this person could have met someone else. So within that time that Spirit set up for you as a clock, it's not the fact that they can feel the energy, oh, I can feel you pulling away from me, from your other person. I'm going to come back and get you, Cinderella. Don't believe the hype. It's not true. It's not real. It's bullshit. All it is divine timing within numerology. Divine timing will be set up with a preordained destiny of a clock. That's why all of these numbers matter, right? So the numbers represent the planet and blah, blah, blah. So this is a clock that ticks. Within that timeline of with these people that are leaving and coming back, you do it with all in the healing year, karmic year, well, the healing year, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, and 10. 1, right? So within that time gap, that person has experienced something in their life that got abandoned. The first thing they do when they get abandoned is go back to you. They go back to them, bang, abandon you, right? But that was only in a period of time that was orchestrated to say, holy shit, within that time, are you healed? No. I didn't even have a chance to find out who I was because you came back so quick to get me. Of course you did, right? So how long is that going to take before they do it again? Right? It speeds up when this person isn't focused anymore because they're focused on something else. Not necessarily themselves, because you have to be distracted away from not really thinking about anything to be present, right? So I think we're kind of going to leave that at that, but this was also an initial of like, Steve, what have you learned during your karmic situation? This. Well, I was teaching it for a while. It's just added different slight concepts of looking at it. But yeah, I mean, within mine, it's kind of detaching emotionally, physically, and detaching of like no blame, no hatred. I understand, right? You need to physically go back and do the work that I can't teach you. I can't teach you how to be abandoned because that's not what I would do. So I'm not going to be able to teach you what you need to learn. I can't teach you how to be abandoned, right? So if I was, I would be codependent. That's what I'm saying. I'd be hateful. I'd be like, oh my God, I can't wait for them to come back. I'm just going to sit here and be impatiently waiting because that's my twin flame. I'm a third person metaphysical energy that can't detach and let go. I'm just waiting for the days for them to reach out again, right? If I was at that stage, I'd be fucked. Sorry, because some of you may be, right? That's you at the beginning of your journey, right? If you're like, okay, well, it's okay. I can detach quite simply because I can just detach my mind from it. I'm not waiting, right? If someone else comes into my life, I'm taking it, right? Without fear. Because without judging the past of like, okay, well, this new person might do what this person just did. No. Okay, because then you're fearing, right? You're not understanding the lesson, right? So you have to not judge. People leave you. But like I said, if she did, I couldn't have taught her abandonment because that's not my theory. I've learned that already. I went through that with my other ex, right? How many times did I try that one? A lot of times, right? So I had to learn it the hard way, right? So we learn, we grow, but apart, right? So she moved on, I moved on and all that sort of stuff because we're not attached to one another. You can't teach a person abandonment so many times. You can only teach them that. Okay. I couldn't teach her abandonment. That's why she didn't choose me because I can't teach her abandonment because that's what she needs to learn is about abandonment. So it's obvious that she's going to get abandoned, right? But within the time cycle, it depends whether she learns because she could come back and get abandoned, right? Or not. It depends on the judgment call of where I'm at on my timeline, when or if that happens, right? But do not wait. If you find yourself waiting and you're finding yourself unable to attach, your soul has a hell of a lot of lessons to learn before it gets there. Okay, so we're going to end the session there. I don't know. At some point, I may just put this on the join button. I'm not really sure, but I'm going to kind of put it out there publicly for people because it's good knowledge in order to be able to learn this sort of stuff and understand it, to figure out where you are on your path of discovery, discovering who you are. Okay, are you afraid of things? Are you afraid of being abandoned? Are you afraid of the past coming back? So anyway, guys, thanks very much. Now, I'm going to do, obviously, now I've got no other distractions in my life and that I don't have to go through what I was going through, which was building up and let's move and let's do all of these things. Now I don't have to do all of that. So now I'm obviously going to be concentrating on my work. So hopefully we'll get a lot more remote viewings and stuff done, right? So thanks very much. Really appreciate it. Please like, share, comment, subscribe. Give it to your mother, your father, your daughter, your brother, your dog, or your goldfish. Who knows? They might need to know something. But thanks very much. Really appreciate it. And I'll see you soon.